Hey everyone, my name is James and I want to welcome you to a brand new episode of Music Biz. Ever since the dawn of streaming, one question has plagued the industry. Should artists be focused on singles or albums? Now, I think it's really hard to have a definitive answer because every career is different, every fandom is different, and what works for you might not work for anyone else. But in this video, I'm going to give you the advice that I believe is going to work best for most people, and you can decide what is right for your career, okay? Let's get at it. Starting with the industry side of things, I spent the last week in Los Angeles meeting with major and independent labels. And the one thing I learned is that everyone is slowly gravitating towards the world of singles. Especially with independents, in 2020, we're going to see a lot of single-only deals. And by this I mean labels signing artists to record 1 to 3 songs and see what happens. If the songs take off, the label keeps an option to give the artist an album or multi-album deal. But if the songs don't really hit with the public, then both people go their separate ways, no harm, no foul. And while that may be frustrating to many artists, it makes sense from an economic standpoint. It is getting harder and harder to break artists, which means labels are investing more and more money into new artist development. They don't want to waste a ton of money recording an album that nobody will stream and nobody will buy and that will ultimately just get shelved. So instead, they're going to put a little bit of money and a lot of marketing power into a couple of songs and see what works. That might not be what you want, but it's the way the industry is going. We should also consider how people consume music today. Most people use a streaming service, Spotify being the most popular, and all of those platforms are driven by singles. If you look at the most popular albums released any week, last week it was Halsey's new album Manic, for example, only a couple of songs are getting promoted through all the Spotify playlists. And Manic is an interesting example because it's an album that Halsey recorded and sequenced in such a way that it is meant to be enjoyed from front to back. But even with that knowledge, which Spotify and other streaming platforms absolutely know, they're still picking their favorite songs to put into their popular playlists, which tells us that streaming is run by singles. So with that in mind, as well as the knowledge about how labels are thinking about developing new talent, my challenge for all new and developing artists in 2020 is that you focus your efforts on singles. Now I know that's probably not a surprise after what I just said, but hear me out. If you have an album's worth of material and you believe that it is the best material you've ever written and it needs to be a collection of songs that people hear this year, by all means, if you can afford it, record it, but don't rush to release it all at once. Here's what happens. We live in a crowded media landscape. If something good comes out, even something great, but not enough people know about it, it immediately gets lost in the shuffle, and the chances of people going back to discover it later is next to impossible because there's just so much new content all the time. And for a good example of this, think about Netflix. Netflix invests billions of dollars into developing hundreds of original films, series, and documentaries each year, but only about a dozen or so really strike the pop culture consensus. You know, if you look at Twitter, only a couple of shows are really taking off. There's Ozark, there's Orange is the New Black, Stranger Things, some of their murder documentaries, but then there is a ton of stuff that just comes and goes and nobody really talks about it. I mean, sure, people enjoy it and there's probably some fandom around it, but it just doesn't pop or take the culture by storm, and that's not what you want for your music. You don't want to be forgotten, you want to be remembered, and singles is the way to do that. Let me explain why. When you promote a single, you choose the absolute best song that you have, the song that you know in your heart is as good as you can possibly make, and you put it out there for the world to enjoy. And the benefit of just having that one song is that everything you do from a promotional standpoint can get behind that one track. You can make videos, you can make social media posts, you can make memes, you can make anything you can think of to promote one song and get all of your energy in it to make it something that nobody can deny and everyone has to listen to at least once. And if you can do that, if you can run one really good campaign around one song that you truly believe in, when you get ready for that next song, people are going to start to pay a little bit more attention. And if you do it again, putting all of your effort behind it, making as much material as humanly possible, getting it to as many people as you can, when you get to that third song, there's going to be people that start to notice the trend. If you have a bunch of songs that you want to release in 2020, I'd advise spacing them out, maybe 5 to 6 weeks at a time. With that much runway between each track, you can produce a ton of content while simultaneously getting ready for the next big song and big content dump that follows it. And as you keep that trend going, people are going to become really engaged in what you're doing. Maybe a blog or another publication that doesn't cover your first or second single will maybe cover the third or fourth because they'll see that you're doing something, you're developing something. You're creating an arc with your music that spans the entire year. It's pulling people into your career, pulling them into your story, and letting them know who you are as an artist one piece at a time. And you leave them wanting more with each release. So if one song doesn't work, maybe the next one will grab them. Or if that song really takes off, the next single has an opportunity to show people another side of yourself. And you're constantly giving them something new. You're constantly producing something that is at the top of the new release list, and you're staying in the conversation. That's not possible with albums. If you release an album in March, by April, it's completely forgotten about. And even if it's really good, there'll be a few critics and a few fans who are talking about it all year long, but the vast majority of people are going to move on simply because there's more stuff, and there's going to be a lot more stuff that follows it in May, June, and all the months that come after it. But if you're releasing something new on a regular basis, people are going to be tuned into it. They're going to be engaged. They're going to want more, and you're going to have more to give them. And that's where you want to be right now in your career. Going back to our earlier example of Halsey, think about what she did in 2019 that led up to the release of Manic in January 2020. She put out Without Me in early 2019, and that song was so powerful and so popular that it gave her months and months of runway to promote her song, promote this track with a video and commercials and licensing deals and all sorts of things. And then as she got a little bit closer to putting out the album, we got a couple more singles, but they were still pretty well spaced apart. And it built so much excitement for what she was doing that by the time that we got to January, she was able to release a complete collection of music at once and advise fans on how she wanted them to enjoy it, because they were just so hungry for material that they were willing to go along for whatever Halsey wanted to give them. And you can do something similar in your career. Now, I'm not saying that you can reach millions and millions of people in the first week by following the singles plan, but you can develop a community around your music who is so excited for the next thing that by the time you get to the end of 2020, they're going to be demanding an album. They're going to be demanding you put out at least an EP or some collection of music, because they're going to want more, because they're so hungry for the next thing that you have to give them. But if you just put out an album right now and then try to spend your year promoting a release, it's going to get increasingly difficult as you get further and further away from that release date. So forget that. Forget all about the traditional way of promoting your music. Take a song one at a time, put everything you have behind it, and you will get results. But if you're one of those people who feel that you absolutely need to release an album, that you were put on this earth to record music that comes out in a very specific way, that being an EP or an album, a long collection of music, then by all means do that. But only if it's what your fans want. You need to be paying attention to your audience. If you have a community of people around you who are demanding that you put out a full, big piece of music, then feel free to put out that record. But remember, there are going to be a lot more hurdles than if you took the approach to singles. Maybe you should try singles first, and if it's going well, then drop the album. But there's no reason to rush into putting out a lot of music. You've probably spent a long time writing the songs that you are trying to release. If you put them all out at once, it's going to take you a long time to write more material that you love that much. You don't want to put yourself in that position. One of the added benefits of taking the singles approach to releasing music in 2020 is that it's giving you a lot of runway to write more songs that you love even more than the ones that you're releasing right now. So why rush yourself? Why put yourself in a position where you need to come up with a dozen more new songs by 2021 in order to stay relevant, when you could spend this whole year releasing a few songs at a time and building up hype, all while writing the material that you release next year, which you can also release in small batches. That's the way to go. That's the way to succeed. And if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, I absolutely love this, I want to do this, but I'm a little stuck at what to do for content, don't worry, that's why this channel exists. Music Biz is your place to find all the content related to succeeding in the music business. So please take a second and click the subscribe button down below. And if you've already done that, then thank you, because this channel only exists because you support it. And if you're not ready to commit, I totally get it. New relationships are hard. You're not really ready to open up and be a part of this community. I'm completely okay with that. So I'm just going to ask you this. Take care of yourself, because you deserve it.